This is The Competitive Edge with Trevor Owens. Welcome to The Competitive Edge. My name is Scott Britton, and I'm here to help you answer a question that we all have. How can I get an edge in my business and life? Each week, we're going to uncover how some of the most successful and inspiring entrepreneurs, entertainers, and thought leaders get an edge so you too can reach your full potential. Thanks for tuning in today. Now let's get started. What's up, Competitive Edge listeners? Hope you're having a rocking day. This is the first episode I'm recording from San Diego, which is where I'll be shacking up for the next few months as I figure a few things out. I'll be hanging out with my homeboy Justin Mares over in the Little Italy part of town, which seems to be a pretty cool neighborhood. And generally, so far, I'm very excited about this next phase in this cool new city. Anyways, I thought I'd introduce today's guest by giving you a story. I first got my start in entrepreneurship in New York City just a few months after graduating. During this time, I made a huge effort to meet a lot of other young folks in the scene when I was out there. And this one guy's name kept coming up, and everybody who talked about him kept saying how much of a hustler he was. Naturally, as somebody who also identified with that quality, I was pretty intrigued. So I went to this event that I found out that he was throwing. And the event was at a co-working space called Dogpatch Labs, and he was interviewing Mark Suster, who was a VC that I just started following. And I just remember being incredibly impressed because here was this 20-year-old kid interviewing one of the top venture capitalists. And not only was this guy there, but he was incredibly engaged and interested in Trevor and what he had to say. I just was so curious about how he had figured out how to get this person to come to this space. The person that I'm talking about and today's guest is Trevor Owens, who's the CEO of Javelin.com, founder of the Lean Startup Machine. And since the first time I encountered Trevor that night, we've become buds, and he's just impressed me in a ton of different ways. Probably the most interesting way, and what we're going to talk to today in this episode, is how he's been able to attract world-class people and mentors into his life. And me and Trevor recently did a cold emailing behind-the-scenes session where we talk about how he's done this and break down some of the exact emails that he's sent some incredible people to begin these relationships. And it was so good that I wanted to make it available to everybody on the show, even though it was originally recorded for Trevor's audience. So in this episode, we're going to go through these emails that he's used, some of his peers has used, to connect with people like Seth Godin, Dave McClure, Mark Suster, and really build some of these relationships with just incredible people that can be transformative for your career. And in the process, we're also going to talk about a lot of things that people do that you shouldn't do and that might be hurting your chances of inviting these people into your life. Now, I'm going to warn you, the audio quality in this episode isn't as good as usual because this originally came from a Google Hangout and my mic was causing some echo in my buddy's apartment, so we kind of had to redo things. But I think there's some real gold here in this content. And if you just want to see the word for word scripts we're going to talk about, you can listen in because we'll read each one of them. But I also encourage you to head on over to lifelonglearner.com, the main website for this podcast, and just click on the top. There's a podcast episodes, and you'll be able to see the video that shows the actual word for word scripts that we're talking about. And I guess I shouldn't call these scripts because these are really handcrafted, very well thought out emails that were used to, again, start these transformative relationships that invited mentors, investors, and people that have helped Trevor take his game to the next level. Alrighty, without further ado, let's go ahead and hear from Trevor Owens. Trevor, what is going on, man?
What's up, Scott?
Dude, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today because one of the most high leverage things that you can do to attract mentors, get first customers, get advisors, investors, just people in your life that are going to help push you forward is cold email and cold emailing them and starting a dialogue and ultimately growing that into a relationship. Trevor, why don't you just start off by just talking a little bit about how cold emails have affected your life and your career?
Yeah. I've actually been looking for a way to teach cold emails to people for several years. Sounds intense, but it's the truth because it's had a huge impact on my career. And I'm going to show, obviously, this audience today, I'm going to show all of you 8 emails that I have written that helped me in really big ways. And I think that cold emailing is the ultimate act of resourcefulness. And I think entrepreneurship is resourcefulness. And so the fact that you can just send someone an email, and you can go from not knowing them, you're just sort of like one step away from meeting anybody in the world and building a relationship with anybody. And so I've used this myself, and I wouldn't be here today in my business. It wouldn't be successful if I didn't master this skill. And I see so many entrepreneurs that if they just knew this skill, they could open up a huge amount of opportunity in their lives. And so I sent out, you made a great course on it, and I actually sent out to our entire list because I'm so passionate about the subject, and I want to make sure that we expand upon it because it's just something that gets me excited.
Totally, man. I mean, being one click away from anyone in the world, I just can't think of something more valuable. And perhaps it would be interesting, just real quick, because I mean, you're a master of this, man, to touch upon like some of the people that you've been able to invite in your life, whether they be mentors, investors, whatever it may be, that started off with a cold email. Yeah.
So, we're going to show a couple emails from people that I sent to people like Seth Godin, the founder of Kickstarter, OMGpop, meetup.com. And I also got my investors in my current company. I actually met not through a cold email, but through a very similar technique. And all of the cold email that I did, I'm literally going to go back 5 years ago when, I was starting from nothing as an entrepreneur and I knew nobody. And it built into a progression where it was a year before I started Lean Startup Machine. Everything that I did, those cold emails, helped create the momentum to do more things, including starting my business.
I love it, man. I love it. And I'm a firm believer in it. I have the same exact story as you, dude. Starting from nothing, knowing no one, just start hitting people up on email, trying to add value and ultimately connect them and build a relationship that turns into something transformational after you get to spend some time with that person. Let's go ahead and dive into the first email, man, that started your connection to Seth Godin.
Great. So a big influence on me, and I recommend everybody read this book, is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Because the way that most of us send cold emails, we always try to say this is who I am and my company is so great and you should work with me because of X. And it's the exact wrong approach to sending cold emails, because when you're sending people who are very busy a message, they really don't care about how successful you are. They really want to know. People are, every day, the biggest thing in all of our lives, sad. It's kind of sad to say, but it's the human condition, is our ego. And so I tried to learn early on to phrase every single contact in terms of the other person. And you'll see in this first email, I didn't really write very much about myself, and everything I talked to myself was in reference to Seth. So, this was back in 2009, September, and he had just sent an email about his seminar in NYC. So the subject of my email was NYC seminar at NYU, because I was a student at the time, and I played that student card and that NYU card repeatedly, and you'll see it in the other emails. But I started by saying, Mr. Godin, first I just want to say I'm a big fan of yours, and I love your writing about marketing. I first came across your book, Purple Cow, 3 years ago as a high school student, and reading it deeply affected how I think about marketing. I read your email that says you'll be coming to NYC for a seminar on 10/22, so I was wondering if you might have time while you're in NYC to meet the Entrepreneurial Exchange Group at NYU's Stern School of Business. We are a group of about 50 undergraduates passionate about entrepreneurship and enacting change, like you, ! We are very flexible with availability around this time, and we'd be honored to host you as a speaker. Anyway, I just wanted to shoot you this quick email because I'm excited about you coming to New York. Please consider if you have time to visit with some passionate students at NYU. If not this time around, perhaps we could plan something in the future. ? Smiley face, best Trevor. And I got a response from him the same day, saying that he wasn't available on the date that I suggested, but he kind of threw a challenge out there. He said, tell me how you can get the most people with the highest energy into the best spot during the day, perhaps in November, and we'll do it.
I love it, man. That's proof in the pudding that it worked. And I assume that Seth did come and you guys did put this event together?
Yeah, so I actually got 300 people to come view him speak. Seth is someone that I really looked up to and really wanted to learn from. So I wanted to bring him to NYU not only to meet him, but also to hear him speak. And a lot of the benefit that I got from this was not just meeting Seth, but I was a very unknown person at the time, and I got to have 300 of my peers see me up there and think, how the hell did this kid get, someone like Seth Godin to come speak? So it was a big platform for myself, actually. It's probably the first moment that I kind of stood out among my peers.
That's awesome, man. And again, that all started with just a few sentences cobbled together in a click on send. I think we can kind of maybe first talk about here just this first paragraph and kind of what it's all about as it relates to the human condition called the ego. So what was your mindset, man, when you wrote this first sentence? And, I can talk about specific points I really like, but I'd love to hear for you just what you're trying to accomplish here.
Yep. And this is actually a pattern that I use is I try to say, I think like the best email that you can receive if you're someone who's a writer or someone who has a public persona is that you want to hear from a fan of yours. And so I just wanted to let him know, I'm not saying like I'm a business school student, major in finance, international business. I'm from New England, Boston area. I'm, this age. It was just like, I'm a fan of yours. That's all you need to know about me. And I love your writing. I just went right into speaking about what he cared about.
It's amazing. And, not only did you say that, I love your writing, but you made a specific reference in his book, Purple Cow. And not only did you say that, reference this book, but you also said, quote unquote, it deeply affected how I think about marketing. Nothing more, the words like having a profound effect on somebody and verbalizing that is just an incredibly powerful thing than like, I really like your book. If I was to say like, I really like your book versus like, your book changed the way that I think about marketing or changed the way that I think about relationships with people, like that copy, even though it might have the same intention, just dramatically reads different and it makes it so much more powerful. And this sentence that you really like his writing is made so much more powerful by a specific reference to Purple Cow or one of his works, because this person really can see that you are a genuine fan versus like some guy who's truthfully just trying to get together get a relationship going because you think it can help you.
Yep. And it adds credibility. I think there's, I didn't do much to really try to make myself credible except for just mention NYU. I mean, you can see my email address. You see it's Stern at NYU. And I mentioned something very specific about him. So that adds credibility. And it's not like, I'm not trying to prove myself. It's just part of my message.
In terms of being specific, you wrote here that I read your email. It says you'll be coming to NYC for a seminar on October 22nd. These type of that demonstrates that you are a genuine follower and that you're in tune with what he's doing. But I think personally, like triggered time sensitive time events, things that happen, referencing that email is just like an incredibly powerful way because it adds like a little bit of a story to why you're reaching out versus like, hey, I think you're cool and I want your help. It's like, hey, I saw this thing that you did. And as a convenient way to both mutually benefit, we can get together, we can have this conversation, or you can come speak at my thing. And I just love that you did this, man, because, it makes it like a highly relevant ask, or a more relevant ask by referencing that you read that he was coming to NYC on the 22nd.
Yeah. And it also makes him feel like it's convenient too, because I'm saying, hey, you're already going to be here. Why don't I make your trip even more valuable? Even though he's actually based in NYC, I didn't know that at the time. But it's also like very similar if you're meeting someone at a networking event. If you walk by somebody and you don't say anything, it kind of makes it awkward to approach someone like later. But if the first time you like see somebody and you just extend your hand and start to talk to them, it's like a very natural, like, oh, I saw like you have almost an excuse to talk to people or an excuse for an ask. So it's just something about like, how we think as human beings.
Absolutely. Speaking of flexibility and openness and all of that, a lot of times people make an ask in the email. They're like, can you get together on X date? Can we have this call at this time? Whatever it is. And you have to realize like kind of where you stand in the totem pole of the conversation. Perhaps if you were like President Obama asking Seth to meet on a specific date might make sense because Seth, I mean, you're the president. You're busier than this person. You have more going on. You might be able to add more value. I'm not necessarily sure. But like you are nobody at this point, man. You're just a student asking for help. And so when I like how you basically said here, like, you gave him a date so that it was easy for him to decide, like he didn't have to think about like when he's free and all that. But you also said, we're very flexible with availability around this time, and we'd be honored to host you as a speaker. And what you're essentially doing here is indicating to him that this doesn't need to be a binary decision of a yes or no. If this is something that he wants to do, he can do it on the 22nd, or he can do it at another time that's convenient. But you want to make this happen, and you're willing to accommodate his schedule, which I think is a super important thing to take into account, especially when you're communicating with very busy people.
Exactly. And that actually worked in my favor because he wasn't available at that time. And I think that if you're too flexible, it can kind of backfire on you. Like I've sent emails where I was like, we'd love to have you, in the month of May or something. And that's like not specific enough where you're just asking too much of people to decide when they're going to do it. So I like proposing something and then just mentioning that you're flexible, that like your number one priority is because I'm such a fan of Seth. And keep in mind, like, this is like 100% genuine. People reading this might think some of the language is hyperbolic, and I can come off as a pretty hyperbolic person, but what I always do is I always focus on things that I'm passionate about. I wouldn't have reached out to Seth if I wasn't a true fan of his. And I kind of made it clear by adding that statement that what I really want is just to have him speak, and it's not anything, let's say, opportune, like a specific event that I need to fill an extra slot for. It's like, no, I need you to come because I'm your fan and you're going to be here. This is the one opportunity I have to have you come to NYU. So there's some almost romanticism about it,
Absolutely. I mean, so many people are like optimized for like volume, and when they're emailing people, like, oh yeah, I want to build a network. I'm going to go ahead and email every single entrepreneur and have that work and see how that works out for me in my city or in my town, and try to get coffee with them. But what you're doing here, and what I think is supremely more effective, is you're making like, this is like, Seth, like, you are my hero. You are the man. I admire everything that you've done, and you are the unique person that we can have to bring most value to this event. And that's a completely different type of feel and tonality and message that you're trying to communicate than basically just carpet bombing everybody in NYC.
Yeah, totally. And I'm only going to show, like 8 emails, and 6 of them are the ones that I wrote. And like, it's really like these 6 emails that made a huge difference in my career. It's not like 20 emails that I needed to like, first of all, build my confidence, build my brand, attract mentors. It was just like 4 or 5, like counting on one hand the number of carefully chosen and thought about emails. And it didn't actually take me a lot of time to write this, but it was meaningful to me to write it.
I love it, man. Let's jump down to the last paragraph. And I'll just reread it, and then I'll talk a little bit about how I feel about it and why I think it's effective. Anyway, I wanted to shoot you this quick email because I'm excited about you coming to New York. Please consider if you have the time to visit with some passionate students at NYU. If not this time around, perhaps you could plan something in the future. ? Smiley face. And just for anybody who's listening to this in the audio only format, you can get this video on lifelonglearner.com or on Trevor's YouTube channel. Lean Startup Machine blog will probably have it, so you can see the exact text. But what I really like here, man, is like, you use colloquial tonality. So a lot of people write emails to people they don't know, and it sounds like they had a pen with a feather on it, and they were writing by candlelight, and they sealed an email with like some like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, just think 1800 style letter writing and sending mail.
Extremely formal.
Yeah, exactly. Extremely formal. And like, you're not writing to King George here. And like, what you're doing is you're coming off very humanistic when you say something like, hey, I just wanted to shoot this quick email, man, because I'm excited about you coming to New York. And that humanizes you and makes you more likable, and it makes this person more want to help you. And we joked a little bit about this before we hopped on and started recording here, is that like, the tonality that I like to use in a lot of my emails, especially when I'm reaching out to people for help, it's like, I want to sound like a chubby 8th grader, like asking for help, because people want to help that person. I don't want to come off as like going down an Excel sheet, hit list sales jockey.
Yep.
because that's not necessarily like an endearing person that somebody can empathize with. So I really, I just want to shoot you this quick email because I'm excited about you coming to New York. And then what this paragraph also accomplishes is like kind of like a summary and a little way for like, at the end of this email, put yourself in Seth's shoes. He's deciding whether or not he should reply, what he should do. And like you make that decision easier for him and allow him to focus better when you just kind of provide like a 1-sentence summary here. I wanted to shoot you this email because I'm excited. I'd love for you to come visit some passionate students. And then you give them the optionality of, hey, if it doesn't work this time, maybe we can do something in the future. And then with a smiley face, which makes everybody feel good.
Yep. And I'm almost like selling him a second time from the initial paragraph. Like most of the value I think is in the second paragraph where I say, this is NYU. You're already going to be in town, so it's convenient for you. And there's 50 passionate students that are just like you that want to be like you. And then at the end, I'm saying, almost like, thank you for reading this email because I know you're super busy. I just wanted to see if there was a way that I could help you out and add value because I'm a fan of yours. And, if this is a waste of your time, like, it's no big deal. And, thank you so much. And so I'm almost like retracting a little bit, kind of like pulling back a little bit so that he feels the distance that I'm creating and then wants to bring it back to a close. Does that make sense? Man.
Yeah, really, really great stuff. And by the way, just a fun little point that I would love to bring up here is that you can say the same exact sentence with or without a smiley face, and it sounds totally different. It just comes across different. I'd be like, I could say like, sorry, I would love to help, but don't have time for this in the future. Don't have time for this right now. And put a smiley face or not a smiley face. And the tonality and perception that I have reading that email is entirely different. So anytime, you're asking for something or maybe you're even declining something, like I always throw a smiley face in there in many instances because it reads totally different.
Yeah. I mean, there's like almost no negative to looking at a smiley face. I mean, it has an instant emotional connection that you sense happiness, right? That's like the ultimate. I mean, it can backfire if you're asking for something formal. Like we'll show another email later that's maybe a little bit more formal than this, but the whole tone of this email is like I'm starting with Mr. Godin, which I would never write an email today starting with Mr. as a CEO of a startup, but because I was a student, it just has a nice, like very genuine feel to it.
Yeah, you're looking at him with eyes of admiration, which who doesn't want to feel like that as the person who's receiving this? Yeah. Lastly, one thing I'll just touch upon is, you signed off like best Trevor. Generally, like signing off with best is just like a great standard. Like it's not too formal, but it's also formal enough for somebody that you don't know. So that's kind of like my default way to sign my name is just best. And here that's what you used. And if people are unsure of like how to sign off, for me, that's what I typically go with.
Awesome. So, you want to move to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So, these are going progression. So this was September 2009. This next one was in, let's see here, December of 2009 as well. And this is Charles Foreman. He's actually was the founder of OMGpop, which is a really cool company in New York. They actually sold for $200 million to Zynga a couple of years ago. And, he was someone that I was like, an eminent kind of founder in New York City tech scene when it was very early. And I really did like his product. So I start by saying Charles. And so everybody knows the way I found everybody's email address using like Rapportive. Most founders of startups, their email is their first name at the domain. So it's really easy to find. So I think I just, found it with Rapportive or just tried his first name at the startup. And I said, first, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of yours, kind of the same intro, and an addict of OMGpop, which, his site is an addicting site. So you built a great company and a product that rocks. Since I started playing regularly in September, I've gotten over 20 of my friends addicted to OMGpop with little effort, and I love it. The reason I am contacting you is because at the beginning of every semester, my business fraternity, Alpha Kappa Psi, holds a campus-wide professional event, and we would be honored if you would be our speaker for this semester. Our organization is about 70 undergrad students, and almost everyone has played OMGpop. More importantly, we all think that you're an incredible entrepreneur and would love to learn from your experience creating OMGpop. The event is scheduled for 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday, Jan 27 in Tisch Hall. Here's the address. Really close to your office in Soho. If this date and time are not convenient for you, let me know and we must discuss an event on another date! Exclamation. Again, we'd be honored to have you speak at this event. Sincerely, Trevor Owens. And same day he got back to me. And just to follow up here, I actually had to send him a couple follow-up emails to really close him. And I ended up calling and leaving a voicemail on his phone being like, hey, Charles, not sure if you saw some of the emails I sent you, but we're really we're out of time to confirm you for a speaker, so I need to know right away if you're going to be there. And so here's some more background to follow-ups. When he said, we're good, I said, awesome, lots you could talk about. He actually asked, what should I talk about? And, Scott, do you want me to keep going through this, or do you want to break down the first one?
Let's break down the first one, but I actually want to bring attention to the fact of how many times did you follow up, man?
Yeah, I sent him one email to confirm. He didn't respond, so I sent him 2 follow-up emails to make sure that he was good. And my approach in the follow-up was never to be like angry or like annoying. It was always like positive. Like you can see in this one on January 11th, which is almost 2 weeks since he said he would be down to do it. I said, how's it going? I just finished playing some Balluno, which is a game on OMGpop. And I said, let me know what's going on soon because the event time and date has been fixed because it ties with other events. We want you to come speak. If you can't, we need to find an alternative person for that date. Either way, hope we can plan something. And then after that, I think I called him and left a voicemail message, and he called me back, and we had like a pretty long conversation. And Charles became a pretty good friend of mine. Like I used to go to his office and it's kind of funny to admit it, but play StarCraft on Fridays. And I met Dan Porter, who was the CEO, who was a mentor to me, and I also met David Karp from Tumblr, who came to speak at NYU later. So I mean, this is the start of a really I think meaningful relationship.
Yeah, man, that's so amazing to hear. And I just wanted to highlight your persistence because a lot of people, they send a cold email, they think the job is done. Or even if they get a response, they think the job is done. Like the job isn't done until you get a yes or a no with certainty for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And there is so much more to gain by following up and being persistent than there is to lose. And, in this instance, it worked out in your favor. And not only did you get him at this event, but here's a lifelong mentor who's successful that's now in your life because you're willing to press reply a few more times and pick up the phone. So well done, dude. I applaud you. Let's dig into this email. Sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, there's a lot of people out there that would say, Charles, hey, I like OMGpop. It's awesome. The effusiveness at which you talk about his product, which, by the way, is what he cares about the most, really stands out, man. When you say things like, I'm a huge fan of yours and an addict of OMGpop. And then you point out, then you support this and say, since I started playing regularly in September, I've gotten over 20 of my friends addicted to it with little effort, and I love it. Is that a little bit different than saying I like your product?
Yeah, I look back on this and I'm like a little bit impressed by myself.
Yeah, man. I mean, this guy's pouring his life into this company, and you're telling him that not only are you loving it, using it, and supporting that with specific details, like you started playing in September, but that you've actually went out and evangelized for
exactly.
him.
I'm not just a fan. I'm not just a fan. I'm a promoter of his.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. So right away, you hook me in. And this kind of we didn't really talk about this in the last email, but the way that I look at emails and cold emails is the objective of the first couple sentences is to just get somebody to read the rest of the email. Right. Because if you're not able to accomplish that, you're dead before you even get started. You're absolutely not going to get a reply if you don't get somebody to read the email, unless your name's Sergey Brin or something. But, so you do a great job here, man, by just really making this person feel good and letting them know that you are helping this person. And then after that, is kind of where you introduce where there could be some value and really talk about like the meat of the conversation, which is the same exact format that you did in the first email. Let's go ahead and like kind of break this down a little bit. You give us a very clear reason exactly why you're reaching out. And it's because of your business fraternity is holding this professional event. And not only like we'd love to have you, but when you say words like we'd be honored if you would be our speaker this semester, that does a couple of things. Like using powerful, effusive words like honored, replacing like we'd love or we'd like. I mean, it's just so much, it just reads so much better, man. It makes it seem like this is super important. And then speaking of, if you would be our speaker this semester, that to me is very indicative of like, this is not just some event where it would be cool if he came. Like this is a one-off instance where you are a special person that we'd love to have for this particular thing. And that to me just seems like way more high value as a person that's receiving this than being another guy who's just, you know, a name on an Excel sheet of people that might make sense for it.
Yeah, and it's like creating a little bit of a fear of missing out because I only have this opportunity once a semester to make him the speaker for this. So if he doesn't have time on this date, then I can't reach out to him again for 6 months. So it adds some kind of like, you know, scarcity to coming to that and being that speaker. Yeah.
Yeah, really good job, man. And you know, the rest of the paragraph continues to support that. So I want to talk about this last paragraph here, because one of the things that people need to realize is that the easier you make something seem or actually be, the more likely somebody is to comply with that ask, right? So you say, the event is scheduled for 12:30 on Wednesday, January 22nd. And then you give the address and say this key point, which is really close to your office in Soho. So that shows me, A, not only have you done your homework, but when I'm trying to make this decision, if I am Charles right now, I could be like, you know, this could be a pain. This is going to take me a lot of time. But you kind of just like insert the fact right here and make it glaringly obvious that this really isn't going to be that hard to do when you say something like really close to your office in Soho. And that's huge, man.
Yeah, and I think like some people might think could be perceived as like kind of creepy or something, but it's his office. I don't think it's publicly available information. It just shows I did my homework. I mean, I wouldn't say something in email like close to your home address of so and so. Like that would be kind of too much, you know. But just saying like, you know, I looked at where your office is, and I know that like we're super close. You know, without like, it's not like too much of a push. Like I'm not like adding a map here of like, you know, from your office to NYU, but
make a left at the front bush.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And then, you know, again, you realize you give some flexibility there. And I think it's important for people to realize that a lot of times, like when you are just kind of like lower on the totem pole than the person that you're reaching out to, like you want to try to really accommodate them. And I mean, that's just the mindset that I think you should take. And right here, you just say, if this date and time are not convenient for you, let me know, and we must discuss an event on another date. And you finish off with just this nice thing that leaves him feeling good, and again, uses effusive, strong verbs in that, again, we'd be honored to have you speak at this event.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff. And just, you know, one thing keeping in mind as people that are writing emails, people that are trying to attract world-class people into their life, they're making a decision after they read the last sentence. So, you know, you could say the most awesome stuff in the world, but if it isn't like an absolute no-brainer to connect with you, like you want to really make sure that you finish strong, because that's when the decision-making process is for that person to respond, to comply in whatever format it may be.
Yep. And one thing that I did as well in this email is that you'll notice in the subject line there's a heart. And
Nice.
I wouldn't recommend anyone just copy that and add it to your like subject line, but I knew that Charles is kind of like a silly kind of guy. Like he's really funny if you watch him speak, and he does like, you know, these kind of like funny jokes. And so I try to be a little bit silly in the email, like to match his to match how his personality is. And even the sincerely Trevor Owens is a little bit, it's not like formal, it's a little bit over the top, you know what I'm saying, in this context.
Yeah, totally. And just for the people that are listening right now and don't have this in front of them, the subject line is NYU Heart OMGpop. NYU loves OMGpop. And I think that the high level point that you're getting at here, Trevor, is that you're best served calibrating with the people that you're talking to, right? So like if I'm talking to the president of the United States and then I'm talking to one of my frat bros, the conversation and the tonality that I'm going to use is going to be a little different if we're optimizing for effectiveness. And you always, like, people generally like themselves and are self-biased. So you always want to more or less, like, to an extent, appeal to that by calibrating and trying to speak in a way that they speak. So I think you did a really good job here that doing your homework, realizing that Charles was a playful person, and then adding some playfulness to your email. And just as an example that was going to counter to that, if you go online, you see that somebody's the most formal person ever and that they've never walked out of their house without a suit and tie on and their hair perfectly combed. And, you know, perhaps it doesn't make sense to write smiley faces and hearts and like 28 exclamation points and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I actually want to add a couple things. So the heart also does another trick, which is that if you can add a character like in a relevant way to your subject line that people are not going to see in other subject lines, like maybe an @ sign or some type of character that's relevant, then it's going to make the subject line stand out a little bit more in their inbox than just like words that they're used to seeing. So sometimes just having your subject line be different than everything else in the inbox can add something. And, you know, I really liked what you said earlier about how, like, focusing on quality over quantity, because, you know, we're going to show like maybe just a few relationships that really, changed my career. And one of the best ways to fail at cold emailing is just sending everybody the same template. And I've seen salespeople do this in my company. I've seen entrepreneurs do this. And whenever I send anyone an email, even if it is like kind of like a MailChimp newsletter or something like that, like I always almost everybody, I will make the first paragraph very personalized. Like I never send an email to somebody, even if I have to send like 20 emails that day, I'll never send an email that's the same to everybody, just because you know instantly when someone sent you like a template email. And when the first thing you say is something that like they talked about in their Twitter stream or something very relevant, it's just going to come across more genuine. So you have to do your homework in that regard.
Totally. And like, let's zoom out for a bit and realize that like the goal is not, and I'm really thinking about entrepreneurs and people that are selling stuff and trying to connect with people around a specific product. Like the goal is not to send the most emails, right?
Yeah.
Because people are always like, how do I automate this cold emailing thing? Like, how do I just like automate and scale? And it's like, the goal is to get the most number of meetings or people engaged in whatever your particular thing is. So that is like that is an important thing to realize. And like, it's just a way to give yourself permission, for this particular type of like personal level of personalization that you've used in this instance.
Yeah. And the goal is to reach out to someone that you've admired. I mean, that's really the goal. That's how you're going to have the most success, is by reaching out to that person that you should be reaching out to right now. I mean, everybody has a few people that they admire in their life, and you're going to build a great relationship if you reach out to that person and just try to add value. Totally.
And, you know, I mean, man, we can just riff on this all day, but I just wanted to bring this to the forefront here. You know, we're talking a little bit today about cold emailing, but we're also talking about attracting world-class people into your life. And I just want, in both this email and in the first email, you had an asset in an event that allowed you to really create a platform to add value to every single person that you're reaching out to. And I think that that's like really important for people to realize that, like, generally everybody wants to be featured. Everybody wants to reach more people. Anybody that's a creator wants to get their message out there. And like, if you are starting from nothing, one of the most valuable things that you can do is figure out some type of platform or stage where you could lift this person up that you're reaching out to. Because it just is going to make like asking them and building that relationship so much easier than just saying, hey, I know that you're one of the top 5 CEOs in New York, but can I get 30 minutes of your time to pick your brain? Like, come on.
Yep. And we're gonna show an email from a mentee of mine at the end about how she reached out to Jack Dorsey and got a meeting and got him to mentor her. But that's another example of quality over quantity that we've been talking about in attracting people into your life.
Love it, man. Let's move on to the next one.
Awesome. So this was an email I sent to Perry, who is the founder of Kickstarter, and this is almost a year later. Looks like 9 months later. I said, hi Perry! Exclamation! I'm a senior at NYU and president of Tech at NYU, an entrepreneurship and tech focused group. I love Kickstarter and actually funded 2 of my projects with it, Hack and Why Hackathon and I Want to Be a Geek on a Plane. Really admire you for what you've built. Period. We're having our first ever Invention to Venture workshop on Friday. It's an all-day bootcamp to teach the basics of entrepreneurship to people who aspire to invent technology that will have a positive social impact. I need someone to talk about finding the money. And instead of having a VC, I thought it would be amazing to have you come in and talk about Kickstarter and entrepreneurship, exclamation. Let me know what you think. The event goes from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. and you'd present from 4:30 to 5 p.m. Best, Trevor.
What happened?
And the next day I got an email back from him. He said, hi Trevor, happy to come and talk. I'll probably just speak for a little bit and do more Q&A. Sound cool? And I just said, that's great. And he connected me with his assistant who helps schedule.
Love it, man. Love it. So let's kind of dig in here. Take me through what you were thinking in the first paragraph.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different because I did kind of say who I am, but you notice it's like, let's see here. I'm just counting the words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words. In 10 words, I say exactly who I am. And I'm trying to, I guess, promote Tech and NYU a little bit here by saying it's an entrepreneurship student group, but immediately it's not necessarily just about me. It's about other people as well. That's why I'm reaching out on behalf of the group of people that want to hear from him. In the second sentence, I explained that I'm actually a big user of his tool, and I'm not just someone who bought something on his site. I actually used it twice on 2 occasions to fund 2 of my projects, and actually both these projects are actually pretty high profile, and a lot of people signed up for them. So it's just like at OMGpop. It's not like I'm just a customer. It's like I'm a heavy user of the tool. And so just echoing that last statement with, I really admire what you built.
Right, man. And I think the important thing here is when you make a statement, that's always going to be more powerful when you evidence it with a claim, or when you evidence it with a specific example. So, I'm a big user of Kickstarter. It's like, I'm a big user of Kickstarter, and I funded 2 projects, and they were Hack NYC Hackathon and I Want to Be a Geek on a Plane. And that to me stands out immediately. Like, okay, this dude's legit. He's genuine. Like, this guy is helping me and all the people at my company succeed. And I'd go ahead and say that this, looking back on it, could potentially even be improved by hyperlinking those 2 specific instances to the actual Hack NYC page and I Want to Be a Geek on a Plane pages on Kickstarter, because it would be super easy for that person to go ahead and verify and see that not only did you use it, but you were successful and that you are a superpower user of this thing that they care so much about.
Exactly.
Cool, man. So next paragraph, this is really kind of along the same format, where you've got their attention, you've kind of appealed to their ego, and then you kind of dig into exactly what your ask is. We're having this boot camp to teach entrepreneurs the basics of entrepreneurship that will have a positive social impact. Were you strategic in bringing up the fact that we're looking to have a positive social impact?
I think so, because I know Kickstarter's mission is, partially a positive social impact.
Right, man. I think so. We talked a little bit about this again before we hopped on the recording, but as many opportunities that you have while still being short and concise, because everyone's super busy, to reference things that they've written about, that about them, that just potentially parts of somebody's life and ecosystem and thing they care about. The more that you can reference those things without being insanely over the top, almost in subtle, nuanced ways, the more effective that you can be. So here you didn't say hey, I know your mission is to have a social impact, but you just literally just like, yeah, we're looking to work with these type of people that have this thing that, oh, by the way, is exactly what it says on your website.
Yeah, it was very subtle.
It's great, man. And then, you brought up the idea of like, I need to talk to someone about finding money. And instead of having a VC, I thought it'd be amazing to have you come in and talk about Kickstarter and entrepreneurship. I imagine that there is a lot of discussion in Perry's life amongst investors, amongst other entrepreneurs, amongst other people that compare raising money with venture capital, raising money with Kickstarter, and the benefits of that. And I would say that I'd imagine that this is like a very like an issue at large that is important to him, is important to the company's mission. And you managed to do a really good job of injecting this into the dialogue to give him really a platform to talk about this thing that he probably cares about.
Yeah, and I wasn't asking him to talk because I just wanted him, and I know he's a big name. And in fact, Kickstarter at this time was not as big as they are today also. But it was really like, who I think in my head, who would be the perfect person to talk about this thing that I have to have in the schedule. And then I reached out to him, realized that he was the perfect person, and just reiterated that. And it's almost like a sales opportunity for him, because I'm telling him everybody in this room needs to find money. And I didn't say it directly like you're mentioning. It's just like, that's what his company does. And I didn't say like, I thought because your company helps people raise money that you should talk about it and sell your product. I said, I need someone to talk about this, and I thought that you'd be a great fit for it, basically.
Love it, dude. Love it. Let's go ahead and look at another one, dude.
Great. And so here's a fourth one, and this is, you notice that all four of these emails have NYU in the subject line, and the reason why I'm showing these four emails is because this is back when I really had no reputation, I didn't really know anybody, and this is showing you like a kind of a case study of my story. So Scott Heiferman is the CEO and founder of Meetup.com. And so the email is NYU Startup Week Keynote. It's just 4 words. It said, "Hi, Scott. Heard a lot about you and really admire your accomplishments as both a founder and leader in NY Tech community. It's amazing how the NY Tech Meetup has grown to 11,000 members since you started in 2004. I'm a senior at NYU, and I organize the NY Tech Meetup Student Group and Tech at NYU, which is a student council for technology and entrepreneurship. We're planning the first ever NYU Startup Week, so I use the word first ever again, from April to 5th to 9th. I loved your speech at New York Tech Meetup in February and would be honored if you would speak as our keynote for Startup Week. We're planning this event for Monday, April 5th at 5 p.m. Let me know if you're available. We hope NYU Startup Week will launch NYU to become a future startup hub." And so I actually had to email him again 2 days later to follow up, make sure he was ready. And then, I just said, "Hi, Scott, I'm trying to finalize the details for Startup Week. Let me know if you're available on the 5th. We'll be an honor to have you speak." And he got back to me the next day saying, "You got it. Happy to do it. Very excited to see NYU Startup Week emerge!" Exclamation.
This is great, man. This is really, really great. I think one thing that I want to bring up before we kind of dive into the content is how you followed up with this person. So you could have sent a separate email, right, after you try to reach out to this person and ask them to be part of what you're involved in, and instead you just replied all to the original email. Why is this such an effective practice? This is one that I implore as well.
Yeah, and I also mentioned again the date, just in case like he didn't need to read the other email. I mean, a great technique is that if you actually have like a tool that can tell you if they opened the email or not, it can give you context as to what to say in your follow-up. But in this case, I guess I kind of assumed that maybe he read it and didn't have time to respond, or just added some more helpful information, because he's probably going to read the most recent email before he reads the first email.
Right. And I think the point here, and by the way, if you're looking for software to see if somebody has read your email, I highly recommend TalDApp, which is just a really, really good way to see basically when people have opened emails so that you can be timely with these follow-ups. But I always like to, instead of sending separate emails, I like to reply to the original email, because you can write like 1 or 2 sentences and it doesn't look incredibly daunting to read, especially when you're reaching out to busy people, and they can just scroll down and see all the additional context that they need without having to go to multiple places. If I send somebody an email and then send them a separate email referencing the same thing as a follow-up after I haven't heard from them, I'm asking them to do a lot of work. I'm asking them to dig through their inbox, find the other email for me, read it, open it, and it's just way less convenient and has way more friction and just following up by replying to that person over on top of the original thread.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. So if we dig into this initial email here, I love how you reference the specificity of your compliments, right? So you start out by saying how you really admire the accomplishments as both the founder and leader in the New York tech community. And I think it's really cool how you say it's amazing how the tech meetup has grown over to 11,000 members since you started it in 2004. You could have said, hey, it's really cool, like how big the New York tech meetup's gotten. But like, this is clearly evidence that like, this is a meaningful organization in you. You've done your homework about it. And then you kind of like logically transition into the fact that you organize the New York Tech Meetup student group. So this thing that is related to what has been a catalyst and such a foundation of his business and tech at NYU. I mean, that's powerful stuff, man. Like you want to talk about, like we talked a little bit about this off the record about how you want to almost generate this idea that you're like long lost soulmates with these people that you're trying to invite in your life. And I can't think of a better example of how you artfully did this than this email.
Yep. And also in this email, I could have said that I want you to, I focus on his accomplishments as a leader in the tech community. I didn't really focus on his accomplishments as a CEO because you'll notice that like NYU Startup Week, I'm sort of subconsciously modeling that like what I'm trying to do is like follow in his path, right? I'm trying to launch, I'm saying you launch a startup community in New York. I'm trying to launch a startup community at NYU. And so I need you as the godfather to come and bless this event.
I love it, man. I think one just general mindset that people need to realize when we're talking about like world-class mentors, just people that can change your life. Everybody wants, at least in my opinion, I feel this way, like everybody, all these people that have accomplished so much, like after they've set out and accomplished what they want to contribute. And I think like the most fulfilling way to contribute is mentorship. And like, I definitely like, I want a protege. Like I want somebody who's just like a hustler who just like wants to go out there and just like rip people's faces off and do awesome things. And apologize for the graphic way that I put that, but that's, speaking from the heart here. And, you've kind of like incited that idea in him that like, hey, like I'm just like you, I'm trying to do this thing. And like, I'm looking for somebody to help me out. And like that's some powerful stuff, man.
Yep. And if you look at the second paragraph, I also said, I loved your speech at the New York Tech Meetup in February. And so I'm saying like, I've seen you speak and you're the person that we need to speak as our keynote. So again, like referencing, like you said, specific details like there's like layers upon layers of justification in these emails for why he's the only one who can do this. And so it's like you said, it's like I'm positioning sort of like his destiny is to be here. And if he doesn't come, it would be like a moral, like something immoral almost.
Yeah, totally. And again, you basically like plant the seed that like this thing that you're creating is a little mini version of what he's creating, New York Tech Meetup, and that we hope NYU Startup Week will launch NYU to become a future startup hub. Yep. And he created like New York as a startup hub with the New York Tech Meetup by creating this mechanism that allowed people to really get together. Yep. So that's just really, really good stuff, dude.
And just so everybody's listening, when I wrote these emails, like we're breaking this down. We're showing the psychology of how this was worded, looking back on it. But at the time when I wrote this, I didn't like have a book of psychology to write these. But what I hope that everyone can take away from this is the philosophy of the mindset that I came into it with. And over my career, I have started to obsess over the way to say things in emails and every punctuation and the flow of the emails. But here I just, approached it from a very, and every email I approach from a genuine perspective.
Which is the most important thing, right? Because, anytime you're talking about a value exchange, and this certainly relates to sales, like if you don't believe in the words that you're saying, that's going to come across in the email. And even if you're able to fake it for a little bit, when you meet that person when you meet that person in person, it's going to leave a sour taste in their mouth if you're not coming from a place of genuineness and just truth. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yep. And all of these emails have been super brief. I mean, this email is only 7 sentences. It's 2 paragraphs. And, brevity is so huge when you're emailing these people. I think if I wrote an email, if I added 1 paragraph to this, it would lose a lot of the punch and the power.
Absolutely. And by the way, when you're emailing these busy people and you write paragraph upon paragraph, listen, Trevor, I'm sure you get hundreds of emails a day. I get hundreds of emails a day. I just look at that this Bill Shakespeare novel in my inbox, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so much work to read this. I have other things to do, and I don't even know who this person is, and my life's pretty damn good without this in my life. So I'll probably be okay if I just delete this. And yeah, I mean, you just have to realize you're competing for somebody's attention, and the less amount of work that you're able to make anything seem, even if that means just reading an email, which is accomplished by brevity, the more likely that you're going to get the result that you want. So
Exactly.
Couldn't agree more. And in my sales emails, in the cold email mastery that, we just shared with all the people that are involved in what you're doing, I try to keep emails 4 sentences or less. Because again, brevity is huge. And I'm not saying that every email has to be, but just a general mindset here is people are not only valuing what you're saying, they're evaluating even before that, how much work this is going to take them to read, process, and respond.
Right. Cool. And one thing I also, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but you should have Reportive as an app, because one thing that'll show up, I'm not showing it here, is that on the right side, when people receive an email from you, it'll show your picture and it'll show some links to what you do. And you want to make sure the picture that you have there is not some very professional, nice photo, as opposed to something random or that doesn't provide you in a good light, because most people have a Reportive.
Totally, man.
Cool.
Let's keep chugging.
Cool. So next thing is it's not gonna be an email I'm gonna show you guys, but it's in a similar vein. I really want to share it because this was sort of the climax of some of those things that I just showed you, and those events that I did was that I wanted to go on a trip with Dave McClure where he toured around Asia with some geeks and went to different tech conferences. And so I made this Kickstarter project because I literally couldn't afford to go on the trip when I was a student. And so 42 people, helped donate $1,500 to me. That was a big help. And the whole point of cold emailing is to make a good first impression on people, because a good first impression is just incredibly priceless. And when it comes to raising money, hiring people, selling a product, the first impression is really make or break in many regards. And both Dave and Mark are now investors in my company because this was hilarious and it made me stood out. So let me just share with you the copy. I spent a lot of time thinking of the metaphor I wanted to bring across, and I actually had something pretty bad when I first tried to do this. I went to a friend of mine, Matt Morales, who's a very good blogger and copywriter, went to Columbia Journalism, and I had this long-winded thing, and then he said to me, just be funny and show your ambitious side, because I could say what a great trip this is, but instead, if you entertain people, they're more likely to contribute the money. So this is the key sentence here. It'll cost me $3,500 to go on this year's Geeks on a Plane trip and hang out with the smartest and most influential ballers in the startup industry. And you can see this graph this photo a lot of people thought was really funny, because I said the plane, 30 plus other geeks, Mark Sister baller, Dave McClure baller, me aspiring baller. And I photoshopped this myself, got a stock image. So it is pretty graphically pleasing. And then if you just read this, you can see the copy yourself, but there's some funny parts in it. And I said, what the fuck is Geeks on a Plane, with these characters instead of actually saying the word fuck. And I said, I just explained it very briefly. And then I made sure that it was going to cost me $3,500, but I wanted to only raise $1,500 or only $1,000, I believe. And, I said, if anyone helps me out, I'll totally, return the favor to you by pledging you're investing in me personally, and I'm personally grateful. Every dollar counts. You aren't charged about me.
I think a great general takeaway here for people, and something I want people to realize, is most people are bored as hell at their jobs, like most people are bored. And so like, if you can get them to smile, you've won. You've won that initial first step. You're going to get them to reply. So like, I think you just do a really good job here of appealing to that. And you're like, listen, like realistically, you're asking people to go and pay money so that you can go meet people that you want to meet. Like that is like not considering there's like all these different ways that people could spend their money in a way that's not on themselves, like building wells, like for something like charity water or helping the homeless or whatever, like that is a tall order, man. But I really feel like a huge part of your success here was that like you're able to play in the fact that like one of the most amazing things in life is when you encounter something that just delights you and makes you smile. Yep. And you can do this with your email copy, or you can do it on a Kickstarter page like you've done here. And this is like something that I do in emails all the time, where like just like a kind of almost a what's the word? Like a pithy last sentence with a winky face that I know just like leaves somebody like smiling is a super, super little thing that you can do that can totally change your likelihood of getting a response. Yep.
And this was a key sentence here, is that I said, honestly, when I dream at night, I think of Geeks on a Plane, and I'm a normal college kid, ... So,
yeah, man.
You know, when I sent this out, actually, it went not viral on Twitter, but a lot of people noticed. I had some people reach out to me, someone from Shanghai who offered to host me that was on the trip. People that I had never met before donated to it. And keep in mind that over the last, this was officially like May 2010. The first email I showed you was September 2009. And so for, a full year, I had been adding value to people by hosting these events just selflessly to get, people out there. I wasn't promoting any of my own products. So, Scott, one thing that, made me realize that I had to do, like, talk about this with you is because in your courses, you talk about having an inner circle of people. And usually these inner circle you're adding value to for a long time. And then when you finally need to promote a product of yours, if the time is right, you're not just trying to sell them, but at some point you are going to need help from other people in your network. That it's really key that you have been adding value for, this is a year, almost a full year before this happened.
Totally, man. And what's kind of cool, like looking at this, is like you wanted to meet Dave and Mark. At the time, did you have any idea that they were going to invest in your company?
No.
But what you did was you put yourself in a position to succeed in the future with just this initial step. And by the way, like we should talk about this a little bit here. These people are busy as like so busy, man, and have so many awesome, interesting people to reach out to them. But most people are probably reaching out to them in the same exact way by saying like, hey, my name is this and this is my company. You really did an amazing job of standing out here. And I think like a general mindset people should take when they're thinking about like getting attention and mind share of world-class people is, how can I stand out in a way that's not off-putting? And this is an excellent example of that.
Yep. And I'm also promoting both of them. So anyone who started talking about this project was including them in tweets. Their names came up in, everybody has like a Google Alerts for their own name. And so Mark told me that like he first saw like the Google alert like for his name. And then this came up, and I'm calling them both ballers here. I'm promoting them. So it's hard for them not to have a positive reaction with this.
Totally, man. I love it. I absolutely love it. And by the way, Dave McClure, if anybody has ever followed his stuff, the guy is like hilarious, at times profane, and Mark's a pretty funny guy as well. And they probably love the fact that you call them ballers. Again, you're calibrating with the way that they behave in a way, which makes this way more impactful than being like influencers. I'm looking to connect with influencers.
Yep. It's very in line with both their kind of personalities. And so Mark actually wrote a blog post about this, I think, maybe a year later or something like that, where he referenced it and, how it made a big impact on him. And I also kept in touch with Mark for like 3 years before he decided to invest. And it was just because I admired him. There's like a lot of VCs out there, but, the people that invested in my company were people that I actually admired, because even approaching them for money, it has a much bigger impact when it's someone you truly respect. Your whole tonality, your whole approach changes.
I love it, man. Let's keep going because I want to make sure we get through these last couple.
Yeah. So let's quickly. This is one that I sent a lot later. It's 2012, but this is Brad Feld, and he's a great VC. The reason I want to share is because he actually mentioned, and I don't know if he's just being humble, but he said that he usually doesn't go to events, even in Boulder, and I got him to come to this event. So the subject line is "Judge at Lean Start Machine Boulder?" ? I said, "Hey Brad, hope all's well, and sad to hear you didn't make it to South by Southwest!" So he just blogged about how he couldn't make it to South by Southwest. He had to actually cancel. He was going to speak at the Lean Startup track. So I said, was really looking forward to seeing your panel at the Lean Startup track. And I kind of, not necessarily guilt tripped him, but there's some kind of almost like the Band-Aid method that you talked about. Like I'm introducing kind of a problem that he has. And then I'm saying, well, we're bringing Lean Startup Machine to Boulder for the first time, and would be honored to have you judge the final presentations May 20th, 4 to 7 p.m. Are you available? ? And I just introduced what is Lean Startup Machine. I just explained it very briefly in 2 sentences. It's not a hackathon. The goal is not to launch a product or company. It's a 3-day workshop to teach entrepreneurs skills to validate ideas quickly, getting out of the building. We've done 18 workshops in 11 cities, training 1,000 founders.
It's awesome, man. Really, really good stuff. Obviously the first thing you do here incredibly well is, again, reference the fact that you're in tune with what he's doing by making that first sentence. Sad to hear you didn't make it to South by Southwest. And by the way, how did you know that?
Yeah, he wrote a blog post about it, I think, a couple days before. So it was very timely too. I mean, it wasn't like a month later I responded saying, "Hey, sorry you're not going to be at South by Southwest." It was very relevant.
Totally, dude. And I don't even know if you did this intentionally or not, or it just happened to be slightly ingenious. When you talk about this last paragraph, when you talk about what the Lean Startup Machine actually is, it's very in alignment with everything that Brad does. Techstars, for those who aren't familiar, the incubator, it's essentially helps people launch companies that have a little bit of traction and help really scale those out. His book, it's called Do More Faster. So when you say things like validate new ideas quickly by actually getting out of the building, that is so in alignment with what he's all about and what he spends his time and energy is focused on.
Yep. And I knew, I mean, he was already going to speak at Lean Startup Track, so I knew it was relevant to him.
That's awesome, man. I really like that. I think you had an idea, or you had an email here of that wasn't successful that I think might perhaps be interesting to look at.
Yep. So let's jump into that one. So this is an email that I helped write with Vivek Patel, who, if any of you guys don't know, he was a president tech at NYU, just one of the eminent up and coming hustlers. And we tried to get Peter Thiel to come speak at NYU Startup Week, and this email didn't work. And I think part of it is that when you write a cold email, the timing of that is really important. Andrew Warner from Mixergy has a cool course on how to do Mixergy and how to approach people. And one of his advices is to approach people that are in a time in their life when it's relevant that they want to get in front of people that maybe that they're going to get more value. If someone's super busy, doing lots of stuff, or if let's say they just finished their book tour, they're probably not going to want to go out on tour again if they just finished their book tour. But if they're about to release a book, that's probably the perfect time because they're going to start ramping up. They're looking for dates to come to their book. I've helped get speakers like Mark Echo for The Alley, where I was like, yeah, he's doing a book tour right now. Perfect time to reach out to him. I've had friends who got a really top investor because that person just sold their company and was kind of getting past a pretty downtime where they weren't in the media a lot. And you could tell that they were ramping up for their next thing. And so timing, when you're thinking about who to approach, just timing at their time in their life is so key. And some of these cold emails are going to fail for reasons you can't control, but I'll talk about why I think maybe this one could have been a little bit better. So we said, "Hi, Peter, you've been inspirational to my classmates and I in your philosophies, actions as an entrepreneur, as an investor, and as a founder of the Thiel Foundation. For these reasons, I and the officers of tech at NYU will be honored to have you deliver the keynote for NYU Startup Week, Monday, October 6th, from 6:45 to 8 p.m. We bolded that so it stand out. NYU Startup Week is NYU/NYC's foremost student-run festival on entrepreneurship and innovation. If you keynote, I will fill our largest auditorium with 500 of NYC's top students and innovators and live stream for many more to watch. Stanford-based president, who I met in May, spoke of the success of your talk last November, and from that moment, I knew that you would be the perfect person to deliver this keynote. A little more than an hour of your time will leave a lasting impact on NYC's youth. Sincerely, Vivek." And then he wrote some details like to summarize it below the signature.
So let's talk about why you think this didn't work.
So I think the paragraphs are a little bit meatier than some of the paragraphs I'd already written. I think it's probably a little bit, it could be, there could be more brevity to it. Also, I don't know, just maybe it's because I'm a little bit OCD when it comes to emails, but it says, "Hi, Peter," and then there's no space between the salutation and the first paragraph. So it feels a little bit heavier. And then I think that he adds, "You've been an inspiration to my classmates and I, and in the second sense, for these reasons, I and the officers." It's just a little bit more verbose than I would say maybe now I would just cut out some of those commas in the first sentence. I wouldn't say a long string in the sentence. I would make sure that if I'm looking at the first sentence in my web browser, that it wouldn't be more than one line. I would have a quick one punch, and then if there needed to be a longer sentence, I would only if it really needed to be a long sentence.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm a little bit extreme at times with my life and different things, but like, if I don't know, I actually haven't really followed Peter as much, and I don't know that his tonality and modes of communication. But like, if I would have said something like, "Dude, hi Peter, I don't know how else to say this, man, but you're a freaking inspiration to me," like that. That just like stands out, and I always like to try to like write emails like I'm actually having a conversation with the person, because I want them to show that I'm a real human person and kind of develop some empathy there.
Yep.
And when like you said, when you have this like big blocky paragraph and it's been like, "You've been inspirational to my classmates and I in philosophies, actions, thoughts written down on paper," it doesn't like where's the human?
Yep. And I think
that's kind of how I feel.
And I think one thing is that, his email address is vivek@tech@nyu.com. He should have had his NYU address. And also, it doesn't really provide a lot of evidence for that claim, like we've been talking about. Like, Vivek isn't, I'm knocking on Vivek because I actually helped him a lot write this email. But, we didn't create any contrast between Vivek and Peter. There's no really rapport being built in this first paragraph here for them to, have common ground, right? There's no, like he tries to, do like, in the second paragraph, "I talked to people who I met and they said that you spoke and it was great. I knew you'd be perfect." In my last one, I said, "Scott, I saw you speak and I knew because I saw you that it was perfect," instead of secondhand. And I contrasted him being a leader in the New York tech scene to me wanting to be a leader at NYU. And so there's no like contrast and rapport between Vivek and Peter here. And this just kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, where he said, "If you keynote, I will fill our large auditorium with 500 of NYC's top students." I think it would just be much stronger to say, "We're going to be hosting at the largest auditorium and there will be 500 students there."
Totally, man.
So you're actually like trying to put some pressure on him. Like, if it's almost like unnecessary to say like, "I need you to come to be part so I can get 500 students." Whereas a better way to say it would be, there's already going to be 500 students there. If you come, which is basically the same exact thing.
Could agree more, man. It's always better to like have certainty in the value add than like make this contingency that brings into question whether you're actually able to accomplish like where you can deliver value.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and talk about the Jack Dorsey email, because I think that's a pretty powerful one.
Yep. And so this was another a mentee of mine, and she came up to me after an event when I talked about finding mentors and how you should just like, and I hope what everyone does after watching this is make a list of the 5 people that you respect the most and that you like really dream of meeting, and just email those people. And I said that at this event, and she came up to me and said, "Well, I'd really love to meet Jack Dorsey." And I said, "Well, like, what are you waiting for? His email is just his first name at his domain. Just shoot him an email tomorrow. Like, I dare you to send him an email tomorrow." And most people wouldn't do that, but she did that. She emailed me the next day and she did that. And then I asked her to send me the email for this session that we're doing. And she said, "Jack, the subject was student introduction," which I think subject could be probably a little bit better, but it's student introduction, and I'm a senior at NYU and have been interested in tech startups for the past couple of years. Whenever I go to any talks and they talk about having a mentor or role model, immediately I think of you. Most recently, when Square acquired 80/20, there were pictures of the contents inside box you give to every new hire, which gave me further insight into how truly great of a leader and role model you are to myself and countless other entrepreneurs. Your attention to detail and design, along with rhetoric similar to that of the Checklist Manifesto, is extremely admirable. I am looking to strengthen my startup experiences, preferably something at Square. So if you know of anything, I would be more than happy to apply myself for a position and would be more than grateful for anything you recommend. Hope to one day meet you, exclamation, keep being awesome, exclamation. And he got back to her, actually a couple weeks later, and said, happy to meet next time at NYC. With regards to jobs, we're always hiring, exclamation. And I believe she followed up like a week later, and she wasn't really planning to go to San Francisco. And this is a really good trick if you want to see if you have an opportunity to meet somebody. She said, I'm going to be in San Francisco in a month, and so it'd be convenient, if you can meet for a quick coffee. And so he said, sure, great, here's my assistant, let's connect. And then she booked her ticket to go there. And one thing that I was really impressed with what she did is she actually got him a gift that was very thoughtful, because she researched that Jack really liked maps. And so she got him a book of maps and wrapped it in a newspaper article about him. And she presented it in a way that wasn't like creepy, but was just thoughtful.
That's just like more demonstrations of going the extra mile than I can count.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. Why do you think that of all the, what specific things about this particular email do you think made Jack respond versus probably the hundreds of other emails he gets every week from people that want to connect with him?
It's really all in the second paragraph. I mean, it's just so relevant and so much evidence of the first claim that it just adds tremendous credibility to her, and the fact that she's a student, and she didn't actually give a specific date here, so I think that was a little bit of a risk. But she also, I think, was intelligent to put something again relevant. She was like, I'd love to intern at Square. So I think that helped kind of close the gap for her, where as there's like a business incentive for him to some regard to get someone who could maybe add value to Square. Like, everybody who runs a company as an entrepreneur wants extremely passionate, hungry young people to work there.
Totally, man. I mean, that's his job as CEO, is to bring on great people.
Yep.
So you have to appeal to how you can help that person out. And the things that I really like is just the attention to detail and references of instances that most people probably didn't even pay attention to. There were pictures of the contents inside the box you gave to every new hire. How the heck did she know that? She probably did a ton of research. Bring up the Checklist Manifesto, which was mentioned perhaps in a blog post a year earlier, knowing that is important. I mean, these are things that only someone who genuinely looks up to this person as truthfully the mentor role model they'd love to have would know. And she does an excellent job of really demonstrating that and bringing up surfacing these finer details.
Totally, man.
And I guess one thing too is I like the way that she ends the email in terms of hope to one day meet you, keep being awesome, exclamation points.
Yep. Personality.
Exactly. Personality. People generally in life, people like doing business with people they like. People like meeting people they like. People like taking a chance on a phone conversation with people they like. So the more that you can come off as an enthusiastic, fun, joyous person, in my opinion, the odds are higher that somebody wants to get to know you and bring them into your life. Yep.
And just so everybody knows, when she did meet with him, she brought the gift and she went for the close. And I thought this was very daring that she just said, would you be interested in being my mentor and advisor to my company? And she talked about a startup that she was working that was kind of pretty relevant to his. It was actually a journaling startup, and I think Jack talked about one of his luck was how he loves journaling. So she got she developed a relationship with him and kept it going after that by emailing back and forth to him, showing him designs of her potential startup. If she got really serious about it, he probably would have been one of the first investors.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Man, this is really incredible stuff. And it's just really kind of evidence, to bring this full circle of what we talked about in the beginning, that being one click away from anyone in the world, be it somebody that you want to hire or somebody that you want to have as a mentor of one of the most powerful emerging tech companies out there, it's a superpower, dude.
It is, man.
There's like literally nothing that I can think that you can do besides build spaceships. That's more high leverage.
Yeah, and that's going to change your life. I mean, she was, and this is for, keep in mind, she sent me this, and you'll see the what makes them special, the blue arrows on the left, because she actually turned this cold email into a course she started teaching other people. So clearly this exercise changed her life forever. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been teaching it to other people. And so I hope that when people stop listening to this, they seriously try to write at least one email to someone that they have the utmost admiration for, following this format. I know, like, for a fact, I'm going to go do that right now, because there's people that even I've been putting off that I should be reaching out to that could really change my business. But, refreshing this in my mind now is just giving me the perfect motivation to go do it.
Totally, man. And I think that's like I'm really glad you brought that up, because I actually am in the same boat in terms of, like, I have a pretty good network. Like, I have some pretty cool people in my life. I have a lot of things to do. I'm super busy, but quite frankly, I've gotten complacent. Like, there are still people that I would love to have in my life that are going to push me further, faster than if I try to do everything by myself. So I'm going to do the same thing. And I think that's a great idea of everybody listening out there and watching. Just do some homework. Like, create a list of 5 people that could dramatically change the trajectory of your life, and be daring and bold enough to send them an email, because guess what? Like, fortune favors the bold, baby. And, like, the only way that you can get what you want is if you take action.
And you literally have nothing to lose. It's not like you're going up to them and there's potential for an awkward conversation. The worst thing that could happen to you is that they just never see your email and they totally forget about it. I mean, you literally have nothing to lose. You only have the entire world and a complete inflection point in your whole life to gain.
I love it, man. Trevor, this has been such an awesome conversation, dude. I'm really glad that we got to put this together.
Me too, man. I'm really glad. I'm really pumped. I feel like I had just 5 espresso shots on this call.
I love it, dude. So real quick, I mean, I just wanted to bring attention to everybody that's listening. Like, we didn't really talk much about Trevor's company, but which is Lean Startup Machine, which is Javelin. He has multiple things going on. But, like, right now, I'm actually using one of his products, Quick MVP, to test ideas. And essentially, it's an incredibly easy way to generate landing pages and then attach Google AdWords and drive traffic to those pages from one place to really validate your ideas. And so, in the past, I had to use like 3 different tools to do this. And right now, I have it all comprised in one place. And it's made it incredibly easy for me to determine the feasibility and demand for a lot of different ideas that I have. So I just wanted to give you a quick shout out, man, because I love what you're doing and I think it's absolutely awesome and valuable.
Scott, I really appreciate that. And, for those who are listening, as soon as you stop listening, go send an email to somebody, and then you can go check out Quick MVP. It's quickmvp.com. So thanks, Scott.
Awesome, man. Alrighty, bud. Well, been a pleasure having this conversation with you, dude, and just can't wait to see who you get responses from and who you email after this.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna send you whoever I email after this. Keep each other accountable.
Sounds good, brother.
All right, man.
I just want to say thanks for listening to another episode of The Competitive Edge. If you enjoyed the ideas in this episode and want access to all the conversations, tactics, and mind shares we'll be sharing in the future, the best thing you can do is subscribe to The Competitive Edge on iTunes. And while you're there, if you felt like this show has made a positive impact on your day, it'd be great if you could leave us a review on iTunes as well. Now, I know we covered a lot in this episode, and there might be a few key ideas or tools that you want to remember. So we went ahead and compiled all of the notes, links, and even a full searchable transcript of this conversation for you on lifelonglearner.com. That's life-longlearner.com. I also want to give you the details on a cool contest I'm running right now at lifelonglearner.com/fun. By entering the contest, you'll have a chance to win everything from Amazon gift cards to a free month of having your very own dedicated virtual assistant to an opportunity to come and hang out with me and my buds for a few days where we'll teach you how to create your very own passive income stream. To enter this contest and learn more about everything we're giving away, head on over to lifelonglearner.com/fun. The best thing you can do is subscribe to The Competitive Edge on iTunes. And while you're there, if you felt like this show has made a positive impact on your day, it'd be great if you could leave us a review on iTunes as well. Now, I know we covered a lot in this episode, and there might be a few key ideas or tools that you want to remember. So we went ahead and compiled all of the notes, links, and even a full searchable transcript of this conversation for you on lifelonglearner.com. That's life-longlearner.com. I also want to give you the details on a cool contest I'm running right now at lifelonglearner.com/fun. By entering the contest, you'll have a chance to win everything from Amazon gift cards to a free month of having your very own dedicated virtual assistant to an opportunity to come and hang out with me and my buds for a few days where we'll teach you how to create your very own passive income stream. To enter this contest and learn more about everything we're giving away, head on over to lifelonglearner.com/fun.